I'm going to talk about energy and governance of energy, and link that to spiritual virtues. So I'm going to go very briefly through the link between energy and climate change, because we know a lot about that already. What is governance? And then I'll try to very briefly look at global, national and local energy governance, both in terms of what it looks like now, a brief inkling of what I think it needs to be, the direction it should go, and then just start the thinking on what one spiritual virtue in each of these levels, the application of such a virtue, could do to kind of overcome the inertia to establish such governance. And this is just, experimental thinking, and just to indicate the path that I think all of us can start when we think about how to resolve this problem. So, we know that energy, mostly fossil fuels, is the key driver for climate change. 2/3 of greenhouse gases come from our energy use, and it's not only how we heat our homes, but how we transport ourselves, etc., from modern energy use. And we have seen these, the energy use is enormously different. In this part of the world where we are, where we need to change our lives, we use more than we anywhere else, and we already heard those figures. But the flip side of that is that there is energy poverty in the world, enormous energy poverty. People who do not have access to modern cooking fuels or electricity, which has huge implications for their health and well-being and their opportunity to economic livelihoods. So there is an unequal world, and when it comes to changing our systems of generating and consuming energy, we actually do not have to even think about climate change to be motivated to change them, because the mere inequity in the people in the world having access to energy is enough. But obviously we should do this for climate change. So now, when I talk about governance, what is that? Well, one definition has put it like this, that it's the sum of the many ways individuals and institutions, public and private, manage their common affairs. It's a continuing process through which conflicting or diverse interests may be accommodated, and cooperative interests and cooperative action may be taken. And this means governance is far more than government. Governance involves all kinds of institutions, us as individuals, corporations, NGOs, civil society organizations, and what we together constitute as the government of our countries. And you have governance at all levels, from the global level to the local level, and in between, and hybrid dimensions of that. And I mean, it's clear that when it comes to energy use and its linked to climate change and energy poverty, it is a common affair. We don't need to doubt that. And we need much more governance to change the pattern of our energy consumption and production to address the problem of climate change. And we need more of this governance at all levels. So, if we start at the global level, well, you actually probably have never seen this headline before, because there is barely no such thing as global energy governance. Energy has for long been considered an issue of national security for countries. They're very reluctant to talk about this at an intergovernmental level within the framework of the United Nations, for example. There is no home for energy in the United Nations system. There's no organization energy except for nuclear energy, because of its link to peace and security. Of course, international organizations have been involved in energy issues for a long time, but it's been mostly directed towards helping developing countries get access to modern energy through various multilateral aid programs. And the direction of that energy aid has usually been in the conventional forms of very large fossil fuel-based energy resources or hydropower. And not to say that this is what the countries have wanted as well for a long time. So there has been very little discussions about creating a normative framework for energy policy at the global level. This is a no-no for governments. And yet in the last 7 years, there has been a few arenas of discussion, for two reasons, both because of its link to climate change. Of course, the major impacts on our energy policy at national level will come from what is decided in the Climate Change Convention. But that will never address energy directly. It will leave to countries how they deal with their energy issues. But also because of the link to the increasing realization of the impact of this energy poverty on the ability of countries to develop and for poor people to have livelihoods and health. So for these two reasons, there have been a lot of discussions in the last years in various UN meetings, particularly in the World Summit on Sustainable Development and its follow-up organ, which is the Commission on Sustainable Development. So these past 2 years, the theme of the discussions was energy for sustainable development, but they couldn't reach an agreement. It was the first time in CSD's 15-year history that there was no decision document. And there was so much disagreement among countries, not about the need for the poor to have access to energy, that one everyone was agreeing on, but about how should we balance, how strongly should we signal the need to move towards renewable energy and away from fossil fuel technologies. And how should the United Nations system be involved in this? And this was a no-no for many countries. So, I would say that there is a definite role for the global level on energy governance. You need to mediate conflict over energy resources. You need to help facilitate the transition to renewable energy. And you need to help to address these global energy disparities. Now let's think about, when I thought, okay, what spiritual principle applies to this kind of complete absence of global energy governance. And justice comes to mind for me as like the first one. Because if you would think about the principle of justice and the enormous disparity in our part of the world's responsibility for climate change and a large part of the world having no access to energy,